and welcome to Long Live the Queen, where we talk about the women who made history. And by we, I mean the royal we, because it's just me. Today we're going to talk about Brave, the fact and the fiction.
One day we will be remembered.
It's been a long week, guys. I needed something a little lighter, so Brave, Merida, Pixar and Disney. I don't have to tell you that this is fiction. Obviously it is, but there were moments that I noticed that showed that a lot of thought was put into it. Kind of the same vibe as Disney's Robin Hood when they mention Eleanor of Aquitaine. It's a nice touch. We hear Celtic flute music, pretty views, gorgeous really. I like that they added the Celtic music. It's a nice touch. We see tents, classic medieval hunting trip set up, glamping for the 12th century or something. So, not super fancy, but, better than sleeping in the dirt. Queen Eleanor is looking for little Merida, but she's hiding under the table. Merida is a name I didn't come across much, but there's a long history of M names in Scottish history. Marjorie, Margaret, Mary. Merida does fit. We see King Fergus with his bow. It's too big for Merida, but she likes it. Merida gets her own small bow. Queen Eleanor doesn't really approve because she's a lady, but she doesn't put up too much resistance, just looks on disapprovingly a little bit and a little worried. Merida is practicing but loses an arrow in the forest. She goes to look for it and sees a will-o'-the-wisp. It's a blue glowing blob, and Merida says, "They are real." In folklore, will-o'-the-wisps were atmospheric ghost lights seen by travelers at night, especially over bogs, swamps, or marshes. Sometimes they misled travelers. Sometimes they represented a hope or a dream that is really unattainable. So little Merida follows the wisp. The queen then calls for Merida, and Merida returns and tells her parents that she saw the will-o'-the-wisp. And Queen Eleanor believes her, but Fergus doesn't. And then a bear attacks. It's the famous, angry bear Mor'du. The men fight, the women and girls flee. It's very Robert the Bruce, sending his wife and daughter off while fighting off the English. We then see what looks like picked stones. Love, love, love. Those are real stones in Scotland left by the ancient people, the Picts, so that's a nice touch. We find out that it's been about a decade since her father lost his leg, Captain Hook style, to Mor'du. Her parents now have 3 more kids, triplets I think, Hubert, Hamish, and Harris. Her mother has very specific expectations about how princesses must behave. It's like princess school. A princess must be knowledgeable about her kingdom. A princess does not chortle, does not stuff her gob, rises early, is compassionate, patient, courteous, cautious, clean, and above all, a princess strives for, perfection. Merida seems to be growing up in the medieval Highlands of Scotland. Not so south that they are English, but not so north that they are Scandinavian. Most of the characters fit this mold. Her mother seems to be more of a proper southern lady. Proper in air quotes, I'm not judging anyone's behavior. Looks like way more fun to live in the Scottish Highlands. But the vibe of her mom is a lot more like southern Scottish lowlands or northern England. There were more rules. It was more proper, for whatever that means. Once in a while, Merida has a day off, and that's when she has freedom. She's shooting at target. She's on horseback, and she's really good. She's been practicing. Then she's mountain climbing, and it looks super dangerous. She has laced sleeves. Laced sleeves were big in the day. Your sleeves were laced onto your dress. That made them interchangeable, so that part I like. But it seems like a lot of work. I'll take my sleeves pre-laced. Thanks. But I do like the versatility of the changeable sleeves. She drinks from the waterfall in the middle of nowhere. Probably safe water to drink because she's in the middle of nowhere. If she had been downstream of, say, a large army, she might have dysentery and died. But this is a Pixar movie, so she's not going to die. This waterfall is clean. She gets back home late for dinner. Her father's telling the Mor'du story again. The boys aren't eating their haggis. They get mail. And it turns out all of the clan chiefs have accepted. But accepted what? Merida must be betrothed. She doesn't want to be. Then we see Merida sword fighting her 4-poster bed. And all I could think is that sword's probably ruined it. It reminded me of on Game of Thrones when Rob was hitting the tree with his sword and his mother says, "Oh, Rob, you've ruined your sword." Her sword's ruined. Her mother explains that there used to be an ancient kingdom. She uses a chess set to illustrate her story, very similar to a 12th century chess set, the Lewis Chessmen. You can see them on display in the British Museum, and they were from the ancient Scottish Highlands. In the story, there were 4 brothers, each holding up one corner of the kingdom, but one brother wanted it all, so it became unstable. And the chess set goes flying. This is why Merida must do what's for the greater good. We all do our parts, and that's what holds the kingdom together. Then we see the queen sewing. She's embroidering a tapestry. There have been various storytelling tapestry art pieces through the years. It was an effective way of storytelling. One of them that survived was the Apocalypse tapestry. It was woven in Paris between 1377 and 1382. It was commissioned by Louis I, Duke of Anjou, and depicts the story of the apocalypse from the Book of Revelation by St. John the Divine. There's another one called the Bayeux Tapestry. Bayeux Tapestry? Bayeux. B-A-Y-E-U-X. Tapestry. This iconic piece of textile art wasn't woven like traditional tapestries. It was embroidered like Merida's mom. Measuring 231 feet or 70 meters long and 19.5 inches or 49.5 centimeters wide. It presents a rich representation of the Norman conquest of England in 1066 with 58 different scenes. So the invasion of William the Conqueror. Eleanor is talking to Fergus. Fergus imitates Merida to help his wife learn to communicate. Merida is doing the same with her horse. It boils down to they just don't agree and they feel like the other one isn't listening. They just aren't communicating together. It flips back and forth, one then the other, one then the other. Both just want to be heard and understood. And then the clans, prospective grooms, are all incoming. McGovern, Dingwall, and Mackintosh. Merida is in a tight, uncomfortable-looking dress. Her mother reminds her to smile. Merida is like her dad. She's just a lot more sensitive to her mother's criticism. Her mother doesn't not criticize her father. He just doesn't take it too seriously. The clans are gathering. They call Merida's father the king, so he's head bitch in charge. He's sort of like a feudal lord, head clan leader. The Mackintosh heir, he's a fighter. The MacGuffin heir is a big guy, very strong, but does not look happy to be there, and he apparently fights Vikings. Scottish and Irish surnames that begin with Mick or Mac are derived from the Gaelic word Mac, meaning son of. So Kenneth MacAlpin was Kenneth, son of Alpin. My brother's name is Dirk, and my father's name is Alan. So had my brother lived back then, he would be Dirk McAllen. And then there's a third clan, Dingwall. I think just because it's a funny word. I don't know. It's a kid's movie. There's a real huge muscular dude, but he's covering the real heir, who's a little guy standing behind him. And his dad's bragging about him, and someone says, "Lies." And he's all, "Say it to my face, bruh." Then there's a brawl, but it feels like they were just waiting for a reason. Fergus is loving it. Queen Eleanor isn't. We hear bagpipes. Again, too early for bagpipes, unless this is taking place in a different time period than they are implying. More brawling. Eleanor has had it, and she shuts it down. She says the oldest born can champion. She says the oldest born from each clan chief can be champion of the Princess of Dunbroch. Merida, as the prize, gets to pick the challenge, and she chooses archery way too fast because she has a plan. We see Highland game kind of situation going on. The brothers are troublemaking, and that's just kind of how it is. No one lectures them on how princes should act, but I think they're leaning into the historical sexism. The men, or boys, or archers, take their marks. The MacGuffin heir shoots, hits the target but way outside. The Mackintosh heir shoots, almost a bullseye, but then he kind of throws a fit. Merida doesn't think that's very attractive. And then the Dingwall heir shoots, struggling because he's not a shooter, but bullseye, but an accidental bullseye. Then there's a Lady Dingwall joke, like he's going to be the husband because he just got lucky with a accidental shot. Merida announces she's going to shoot for her own hand. She is firstborn, after all. Her dress is too tight, so she rips it, and she wins the archery challenge. Queen Eleanor is embarrassed and angry. Merida tells her mom to mind her own business and butt out. Then Merida cuts the tapestry that her mother was making, which had been a picture of their family that she was stitching. Her mother, in return, throws Merida's bow in the fire. Merida runs out, upset, and her mom tries to save the bow in a what have I done moment. Merida is running away on horseback, and her horse gets startled. She is bucked off. Wear your helmets, guys. Too many of my episodes end with ladies falling off horses and dying. She's at a stone circle again, and she sees a will-o'-the-wisp. Maybe it can help her. After all, it is magical. Her horse Angus won't go near it. Red flag. She follows the wisp, and Angus reluctantly follows. She's led to a cottage, but why? There are carved wooden bears everywhere, and a crazy old bear lady, because you just replace those bears with cats, and I think you see what I mean. I don't know if these are just everywhere, but where I am, there's a lot of chainsaw carving going on, and not in the cities as much, but out in the county. You go to the county fair, you see some chainsaw carvings, and a lot of them are bears. That's what this reminds me of. The carvings, to some degree, seem to be foreshadowing. Specifically, the bear fishing in the stream, the little toy. It's a little toy. You wind it up, and the bear kind of dips his head into the stream when the fish go by. Put a pin in that. She's selling everything for half price, as far as I can tell from an overabundance of inventory, because it's packed with bears in there. Merida then sees the broom sweeping by itself, and freaked out, the woman says that's ridiculous. Wood cannot be imbued with magic. And she should know because she's a whittler, a wood carver. Smooth. Then there's a talking bird that becomes a singing bird and not like a canary. More like a raven that's going la la la. Merida's like, you're a witch and I need your help and I won't take no for an answer. The witch is like, hell no. Too many unsatisfied customers. Red flag, red flag. Then the witch threatens her with magical woodworking tools and says, get out. Merida, like any ingenuitive princess, offers to buy it all. How? With her locket. But she also wants a spell to change her mother. The witch is all, deal, come with me. Merida asks where they are going, and the witch says, never conjure where you carve. It reminds me of a lot of sayings that I've heard over the years. And all those sayings basically boil down to, one should not cause trouble in a place, group, or situation in which one regularly finds oneself, as it will likely backfire. Foreshadowing. The witch says the last time she did this was for a prince who wanted the strength of 10 men. And she could do it again, and she shows Merida a coin with crossed axes. Then the witch does a lot of magic and ends up with one small magical tart. Her mom has to eat it. And the carvings will be delivered in a fortnight. I appreciate that. Fortnight? 2 weeks? We don't use fortnight enough. I also want to start saying good morrow to my husband every morning. He'll think I'm crazy, but you know what? Good morrow. We never say that. We're like, morning. I like good morrow. Merida gets back home, and the brawling has turned into drunken revelry. Lots of Mor'du stories. It's her dad's back in the good old days story combined with some amount of PTSD probably from getting his leg bitten off by a crazy mean bear. Merida makes a snack for her mom, with the main event being the magical tart. She adds a flower that I think is a thistle, which is the national flower of Scotland. Maybe the first national flower ever. The Thistle and the Rose was a poem about King James IV and his wife Queen Margaret of Wars of the Roses unity. Thistle's a big deal in Scotland. Her mom comes in. She was worried, but the lords are pacified now. Thank goodness she's back, because, don't be out too late. It's 10 p.m. Do you know where your kids are? Her mom eats about one bite of the tart, but then doesn't feel well. Merida helps her to bed, but not before she belches in front of all of the lords, the entire hall. The king finally notices his wife is there and asks if she's well, but then she's gone to bed. He's not so observant. In the bedroom, her mom is sick, falls off the bed, groans, stands up, and boom, she's a bear. At first, the queen doesn't know she's a bear, but then she sees her paws. Merida confesses, sort of. She says she didn't want her mother changed into a bear, she just wanted her mother to change. Relatable. But her mom is like, are you effing kidding me? Her father, way over in the keep, wherever that is, can smell a bear somehow, part of his PTSD, but also he's not wrong. Meanwhile, in the bedroom, Queen Eleanor is a proper bear lady, and she's trying to find clothes that will fit her new bear form, but nothing is big enough. We see the men going on a bear hunt through the castle, and we get the feeling that this is not an unusual occurrence. Merida's all, Dad can't see you. He has a thing about bears. King Fergus is like a bloodhound. He's going through the castle like, I smell bear. The Bear Queen can't run around the castle naked, but she doesn't have any bear-sized clothes. Then a servant sees her, screams. King Fergus is all, I knew it. There is a bear in here. The Bear Queen runs. She finds her sons. Merida explains to her brothers that a witch turned their mom into a bear, and it's not her fault. She needs their help, so she offers to pay them with her dessert for a year. The boys agree and lead the men on a wild goose chase around the castle. They are literally chasing shadows. More bagpipes, again. Not time appropriate, but you gotta have bagpipes, right? The men get led to the top of the tower and then get locked out. That was the plan all along. Merida escapes with her mother, and the boys see the magic tart. Trouble. The men all take off their pants and tartans to make a rope and climb down, and we see butts. Merida takes her mom back to the stone circle looking for will-o'-the-wisps, but no wisps. They start looking for the cottage, and Merida recognizes where they are. She retraces her steps and finds the cottage. It's empty, though. Completely empty. But when she goes through the door, a Rube Goldberg machine starts up. Rube Goldberg machines are those elaborate contraptions that one thing happens and leads to another thing happening, that leads to another thing happening, until something happens at the end. Think of the board game Mousetrap. Rube Goldberg machines weren't in the popular lexicon, though, until around 1928, so way off on time. But it's funny, and it's a kid's movie, and I think we're supposed to know that that wasn't time period accurate. At the end of the Rube Goldberg machine, an illusion of a witch emerges from a cauldron, and it's like an automated answering service cauldron. Use this potion for this. Use this potion for this. She chooses the third potion for, if you're that redheaded lass, because she is indeed that redheaded lass. The witch illusion warns her. It's going to be permanent unless she remembers these words. Fate be changed, look inside, mend the bond torn by pride. And then it repeats, because all those calls say, if you'd like us to repeat it, press, 6. So again, she says, fate be changed, look inside, mend the bond torn by pride. And then she says, that's it, ta-ta. Thanks for visiting the Crafty Carver, which I like the name. It's a cute name, the Crafty Carver. Merida mixes everything and kind of sets off some sort of magic bomb because she's just dumping everything in the cauldron, and her mother shields her with her big bear body. She says, well, I guess we'll sort it out tomorrow. And she makes a makeshift sleeping area for her mom out of the rain because she can't go back to the castle, so she has to sleep outside tonight. And this is not glamping. Merida remembers when she was little and she was scared and her mom was singing and it made her feel better. Then the next morning we see her bear mom. She's set a cute little forest table because she is always a proper bear lady. Merida points out that the berries are poison and the water has worms, so ew. Merida is more forest savvy than her mother and catches her a fish, and then reminds her mother that a lady should not have weapons, in a sort of I told you so kind of tone. Then her mom learns to fish like a bear. Remember that bear toy catching fish? It was foreshadowing. Then her mom seems more bear and less mom. Is this part of it becoming permanent? Probably. Her mom snaps back just in time because she almost attacks Merida. They see a wisp and her mom attacks it. They follow the wisps, but it's really far. And they find castle ruins. And there's the same crossed axes that Merida saw on the witch's coin. So I think it's a clue. It seems like from most of the context clues that we've gotten so far, this movie should be taking place long before large stone fortresses, castles. But we are messing with time just a little, so there are stone castle ruins here, even though stone castles weren't probably a thing yet. Merida falls through the ruins, and using context clues of her own, she thinks this may be the castle of the 4 brothers in the story her mom told her about the ancient kingdom. There is a stone carved with 4 brothers, and it's cracked, similarly to the way the tapestry was torn. OMG, the oldest brother is Mor'du. The strength of 10 men to defeat his brothers, and then it became permanent. It's all coming together. Mor'du is because the prince asked the witch to make him strong, and it backfired. Too many unhappy customers. But that means this must be Mor'du's castle. And boom, Mor'du's there. Attack, attack, attack. They get away safely, but just barely. Merida explains to her mother that her fate will be Mor'du's fate unless they fix the tapestry. They have to mend the tapestry. They have to sneak back into the castle. But how with the Bear Queen? And why does she have to go back? I'm not sure. She can't sew with her big bare hands. Merida's the one who has... Why can't Merida just sneak in, sew up the tapestry, and bring it to her mom? I don't know. So they're going to sneak her in to this castle where there's basically a bear serial killer living. And there's still drunken brawling going on. And Merida starts speaking. She's going to give a speech to distract so her mom can get by. She keeps talking and keeping their attention while her mom sneaks in for some unknown reason. And she starts the ancient kingdom story. And she says, legends are lessons. Our kingdom is young. Our clans were once enemies. But when enemies came from the sea, we united. A nod to the Vikings. That's when they united. The Picts and the Scots united to fight the Vikings with Kenneth MacAlpin. Her speech is good, and her bear mom is kind of miming from the sidelines, trying to help her as she tries to say why some traditions need to be broken. They're a young country, they're still learning, and everything they do isn't the right thing necessarily. This takes place in a time when Scotland flat out rejected single women and women leaders. It was a time of a lot of war, and they thought without a man, the women were helpless. Not true, but truer than it is now. Hunting and war skills were just more important then. We have grocery stores. And they were under the impression that only men could do that. But that would be why you would teach your daughters how to protect themselves, say, with a bow. Everyone's crying, and then they're off to the cellar for a private reserve to celebrate. They say it in a way that young kids probably miss it, but the parents won't. They're going to go drink some more. Now they have to mend the bond, fix the tapestry, sew all night. But then King Fergus sees Bear Queen Eleanor, and she's acting more bear than queen. Merida tries to explain as her mom escapes, but then it's her dad's turn not to listen, and he locks her in her room. Merida sees her brothers, also now bears, because remember, they saw the magic tart, and apparently they ate it. She sends them to get the key. It's Cinderella style with the mice getting the key. Gotta get her out. And she goes to sewing. Like, while she's stuck here, she might as well sew the tapestry. Merida's bear brothers get the key, and Merida escapes and goes out to chase her father, who's chasing her mother. And she finds him just in time to say that they aren't going to kill her mother. Oh, and by the way, the boys are bears too. Don't kill them either. But then Mor'du is there, and they fight because Mor'du is not a nice bear. Bear Eleanor fights Mor'du to save her daughter and wins using her brain because she's still a proper lady. She's not all bear. And Mor'du is dead. We see the prince's soul kind of being released from the bear corpse, letting us know that all of our assumptions were probably correct. That was the prince trapped inside Mor'du's body. But the sun is rising, and she kind of throws the tapestry over her mom because she doesn't know what to do. The spell's going to be permanent. She's like, why is she, I mended the tapestry. Why is she still a bear? But it doesn't work. Her mom is still a bear. And Merida cries and says, I'm sorry. It's all my fault. You've always been there for me. You've never given up on me. I want you back. Her little bear brothers are sad, and so is her dad. It's sad, but it's sweet. And then her mom's back, and she's human. Eleanor, though, is naked, because remember, she was a bear. She couldn't find any clothes that fit, and her brothers are naked, too. And then we see a new tapestry of Merida and a bear, so more storytelling continues. And the clans are friends again. They are going to allow the young people to decide for themselves who they marry and when they do that. And that is very progressive for what I can only assume is the 12th century. And then they're horseback riding, and Eleanor has let her hair down. She's loosened up a little, and they've learned how to communicate with each other and compromise. It's beautiful. The end. What did you think about Brave, the fact, and the fiction? Obviously it's fiction, but I appreciate the small nods to the real history. I enjoyed it. You can share your thoughts with me at longlivethequeenpodcast@gmail.com or on Facebook or Instagram at Long Live the Queen Podcast. If you have negative comments or reviews, please send them to our customer service department at jeff@amazon.com. Long live to all the queens out there, and until next week, bye.
You will be remembered.
Thanks for listening.